The docking spire of the Galactic Council loomed like a needle of obsidian glass against the glow of 3 intersecting suns. Shuttles drifted around it in silent loops, each one carrying representatives of a different civilization, scaled, furred, crystalline, or entirely luminescent. Their escorts followed closely behind, bristling with weapons that hummed with lethal promise. Only one incoming vessel stood out. It carried guards without a single visible armament. Captain Mira Hale stood at the front of the human shuttle as it slid into its orbital berth. Her stance was steady, her breathing even. She wore the formal charcoal uniform of the United Terran Diplomatic Corps, clean lines, no adornments, no weapons belt. Her team of 3 mirrored her posture with disciplined stillness. The ramp hissed open. Heat from the tri-star array washed over them, sharp and metallic. Every alien delegation visible in the reception hall froze. Human calm had that effect. Ambassador Cantor murmured from behind Mira. "Expect the usual stares." "Always do," she replied, her voice low and centered. This hall was an architectural marvel, arches carved from meteoric iron, walls threaded with prismatic conduits, a floor reflecting the polished night sky. Yet its beauty did nothing to soften the tension that gripped the gathered envoys. A cluster of Zelthari diplomats, tall, insectoid figures, tilted their translucent heads. The faint ripple of their wings signaled alarm. Further down the hall, the stone-skinned Dravanti stepped aside, exchanging wary gestures as Mira led her team forward. The aliens' reactions weren't new. Humanity had only been a council member for 12 years, and their habits still unsettled older civilizations. But the strongest source of unease was always the same. Human diplomatic guards carried nothing. No plasma blades. No coil rifles. No adaptive armor. Only their uniforms and their silence. Rumors had blossomed in the Council's echoing chambers, implanted nanoforges, bone-based weaponry, hidden singularity nodes. None were true, but fear never needed truth. The walkway cleared as the humans moved. "Eyes forward," Mira murmured to her team. The 3 guards, Reese, Lorne, and Aisha, tightened formation. Their steps fell in perfect sync, a cadence practiced until it became instinct. A deep, resonant voice drifted from the far end of the hall. "Captain Mira Hale," it announced, echoing through the spire. Archon Vraxthal emerged from behind a crystalline barrier, flanked by soldiers whose armor resembled serrated obsidian. His posture was high and rigid, every movement deliberate. The Varka Dominion's supreme strategist radiated calculated hostility. Mira held his gaze. She had seen eyes like his before, eyes belonging to commanders who believed control was the law of existence. "Archon," she acknowledged. His mandible plates clicked. "You arrive unarmed." Again. Mira didn't respond immediately. Silence made some aliens uneasy, and she used it well. "Our customs haven't changed," she said. "Curious," Brax replied. "Considering the Council's current concerns." He leaned closer, his voice nearly a hiss. "Some believe you hide something." Ambassador Cantor stepped between them. "Human security poses no threat to the Council. We follow established protocols." Vrax's eyes flicked toward the unarmed guards. "I doubt that." Mira felt the weight of unspoken accusations. Reports indicated Vrax had been stirring suspicion for months, claiming humans had perfected biological weaponry or integrated microscopic armaments. The Council had not yet acted, but tension simmered. "I assure you," Mira said, "we abide by the same standards as every other delegation." "And yet," Vrax mused, "every other delegation arrives properly equipped. Your refusal stands out. The galaxy distrusts anomalies." Mira held his stare. "If distrust is the goal, you're succeeding." A passing group of Sarnell emissaries paused to study the exchange. Their bioluminescent patterns shifted rapidly: alarm, curiosity, speculation. Information in the Council traveled fast, especially when Vrax seated it himself. "As security commander," Vrax continued, "you must allow an inspection of your team. For the Council's safety." Ambassador Cantor stiffened. The United Terran delegation has never required inspections. Nor have we ever posed a threat. Vrax's smile widened. You misunderstand. I insist. Mira stepped forward before the ambassador could respond. Inspection denied. Weapons lifted around Vrax, a dozen Varku soldiers adjusting their grips. Their rifles crackled with dark blue arcs of antimatter current. The hall's ambient lights dimmed in response. Yet Myra's team didn't move. Not a twitch. Not a shift in stance. That stillness did more to unnerve Vrax's soldiers than any weapon could. A moment stretched thin between them. Finally, Vrax signaled his troops to lower their weapons. Very well. For now. His words dripped with unspoken threat. He turned and strode toward the council gates, his guards trailing behind him like prowling shadows. When he was gone, Ambassador Cantor exhaled. He intends something. Obviously, Mira said. But we stay focused. Escort procedures remain unchanged. They continued through the spire's winding corridors. Alien delegates whispered as the humans passed. The rumors were growing. Mira could feel it in the way groups shifted aside, giving them a wider berth than usual. At a security checkpoint, a young Elvari attendant trembled as Mira approached. The Elvari's silver skin reflected the ambient light like water. See Captain Hale, the attendant stammered. The council, they request your presence in the pre-summit chamber. For what purpose? Mira asked. A review. About your security methods. Of course. Vrax's influence was working. We'll attend, Mira said. Inform the council. The attendant nodded rapidly and hurried off. Reese muttered. Feels like we're walking through a storm. We are, Mira replied. But the storm isn't ours. They reached the chamber entrance. 2 towering automated sentinels scanned the group before allowing passage. Inside, the room was arranged like a courtroom, tiered seating for the counselors, a central platform for speakers, and translucent hollow screens arranged overhead. The chamber lights dimmed as members filed in, scaled wings, glimmering horns, tendrils, exoskeletons. The air crackled with anticipation. Counselor Sherlaw, a serpentine figure of immense stature, addressed the humans. Captain Hale. Ambassador Cantor. Questions have arisen about your security posture. Ambassador Cantor stepped forward. We are prepared to explain our practices, Counselor. Good, Sherlaw replied. Many civilizations find your customs unsettling. Mira noted the shift in tone around the room. Fear. Suspicion. Calculation. Each species processed concern differently, but all focused on the same point, humans. Counselor Threx, a crystalline being whose body refracted light, leaned forward. Why do your guards arrive unarmed? Is it arrogance? Concealment? Or something else? Mira answered before the ambassador could. Our methods rely on discipline, coordination, and control, not external tools. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Threx pressed. Control without weapons suggests hidden capability. That is an assumption, Mira said calmly. Assumptions arise from patterns, Sherlock countered. And your pattern is unusual. Mira kept her posture precise. We aren't here to threaten anyone. Vrax's voice echoed from the shadows at the edge of the room. Not yet. All eyes turned toward him as he stepped into the light. Captain Hale, he said, you've walked into a new era. The Council will soon demand transparency. And I intend to reveal what humanity truly hides. Mira didn't blink. Then you'll be disappointed. On the contrary, Vrax replied, his tone soft and venomous. I expect the truth to be explosive. The chamber fell silent. The storm had begun. The pre-summit chamber emptied slowly, as if every delegate feared the tension might ignite behind them. Mira remained still until the final echo of departing footsteps faded. Only then did she release a controlled breath. Ambassador Cantor approached her with a weary glance. He's building momentum. The Council is listening to him. They shouldn't be, Mira said. But fear is persuasive. Fear always is. They left the chamber together, escorted by Myra's team. The corridor beyond was quieter than before, too quiet. Council halls were usually filled with drifting voices or the hum of delegation traffic. Now, even the ambient drones of service bots sounded distant. Ruiz walked beside Mira. People were staring harder than usual. They're waiting for confirmation, Mira said. Vrax knows how to plant doubt, Aisha added. Feels like we're surrounded by eyes looking for cracks. Mira nodded once. Stay focused. No mistakes. They navigated the spire's central ring where diplomats gathered around holobriefing nodes. Conversations hushed as the humans passed. A Zelthri emissary clicked its mandibles nervously. A crystalline Threxian dimmed its internal glow as if shrinking from view. Cantor gave Mira a pointed look. This is beyond politics. They're rattled. They should be rattled about Vrax, Mira said. Not us. The ambassador paused at a branching corridor. I need to prep for the summit. Meet me in the east vestibule in 1 hour. Mira inclined her head. Understood. Cantor hurried away, leaving Mira with her team and a growing sense of unease. She turned toward a security holo terminal to request the latest incident briefings, but a glimmer of movement nearby caught her attention. A small figure approached, an Elvari diplomat named Lethean, barely as tall as Myra's shoulder. Elvari were typically calm, but Lethean's shimmering skin flickered erratically. Captain Hale, Lethean said in a strained whisper, glancing over their shoulder. I must speak with you. Mira stepped aside to give them space. What's wrong? It's Vrax, Lethean said quietly. He's been holding private sessions with several council members. He claims humanity has engineered soldier castes. Says you conceal enhanced combat biology. Ruiz stifled a snort. Soldier castes? Lethean winced. He's convinced some. He has documents. Fabricated, but convincing. Mira folded her arms. What kind of documents? Holocharts showing impossible reaction speeds. Interpretations of your neural scans from your initial entry into the council. He twisted everything. He's pushing for a special inquiry. Aisha muttered. He's accelerating. Lethean nodded rapidly. He thinks something is coming. He wants humanity cornered before the summit begins. Mira studied the Elvari's eyes, wide, frantic, honest. Thank you for telling me. You didn't hear it from me, Lethean said before slipping away, vanishing into a cluster of glowing delegates. Mira looked at her team. We need intel. Ruiz, scan the diplomatic channels. Lorne, monitor internal council chatter. Aisha, check for any Varka troop movements in the spire. On it, they said as one. They moved through the corridor, each guard falling into a task without delay. Mira accessed a private console and initiated a silent investigation protocol. Lines of encrypted data scrolled across the screen. Her jaw tightened. Vrax had already filed a petition to force a human security audit. He'd scheduled an emergency vote, tonight. He wanted to isolate humanity before the summit even began. A sharp beep cut through the air, Aisha's voice over comms. Captain, I'm detecting something strange near the Varka transport lifts. Increased security. Patrol routes shifted. Define increased, Mira said. Double the usual units. Heavily armed. Ruiz chimed in next. Captain, chatter indicates a controlled demonstration plan for the summit. Lorne added. There's talk of a staged incident. Myra's pulse stayed steady, but her mind moved fast. Vrax was positioning pieces exactly where he wanted them. He didn't intend to debate humanity. He intended to force the Council's hand with a crisis he could blame on them. We're heading to the upper concourse, Mira said. Move. They climbed a spiral ramp lined with radiant latticework. The upper concourse brimmed with diplomatic aides preparing for the summit, organizing data spires, transmitting speeches, adjusting translation protocols. Yet beneath the activity lay a palpable tension. When Mira entered, dozens of eyes turned toward her again, not with curiosity but expectation, as if waiting for her next move to validate their fears. She stopped at a junction where an observation balcony overlooked the council arena. Workers adjusted floating platforms, calibrated acoustic shields, and tested illumination grids. The space resembled a ceremonial battleground waiting for combatants. Ruiz approached her. "Found something else," he said quietly. "Encrypted Varka messages reference the spark." "No context," Lorne added. "Vrax requested a direct security override of the emergency lockdown system." Aisha muttered. "That's not normal. That system governs evacuation routes." Mira understood instantly. The controlled demonstration wasn't going to be controlled. It would be chaos, designed to force humanity into a position where anything they did, even self-defense, appeared aggressive. "Vrax wants to ignite panic," Mira said. "He'll unleash a threat, then claim we're behind it." Ruiz shook his head. "He's using the council as bait." "Exactly?" Lorne asked. "Do we warn the ambassador?" "Not yet," Mira said. "We need proof before we trigger alarm. If we sound unprepared, Vrax wins." A steady ripple of footsteps drew their attention. A cluster of delegates from half a dozen species approached, led by a towering Dravanti representative. Their stone features were carved with suspicion. "We request clarification," the Dravanti rumbled, addressing Mira directly. "Is humanity concealing biological weaponry?" Mira didn't flinch. "No." A smaller delegate, glowing faintly green, added. "Then why refuse inspections?" Mira held her voice firm. "Because inspections for one species create rulings that can be weaponized against all. If humans submit, so must everyone. That precedent can destabilize the council." Murmurs spread among them. "That sounds like justification," the Dravanti said. "It is a safeguard," Mira replied. "Nothing more." The delegates dispersed, unsettled. Ruiz whispered. "He's getting to them." "That's why we don't react emotionally," Mira said. "We hold the line." The hour approached. Mira led her team to the east vestibule where Ambassador Cantor waited. His suit was immaculate, but his eyes betrayed concern. "Tell me," he said. "What did you find?" Mira briefed him quickly. His expression hardened with each detail. "So he intends to manufacture a threat during the summit," Cantor said. "What's his endgame?" "To force humanity into a corner," Mira said. "If we act decisively, he claims aggression. If we hesitate, he proves we're unstable. Either way, he wins." Cantor looked toward the arena's glowing entrance. "There has to be a way to stop him." "There is," Mira said, her voice steady. "We stay predictable. Controlled. Focused. And we expose the truth when he overreaches." A distant tremor reverberated through the spire, barely a hum, but enough to draw glances. Aisha spoke quietly. "Storm's getting closer." Mira turned toward the summit chamber doors. "It starts tonight." The summit chamber vibrated with a low harmonic hum as the delegates gathered. Thousands of lights pulsed across the vaulted dome, illuminating banners of 97 civilizations. Platforms drifted into position like hovering islands, each holding diplomats, aides, and guards, most armored and armed to the teeth. Only the humans entered with empty hands. Captain Mira Hale led the way, her team forming a tight diamond around Ambassador Cantor. Their footfalls echoed across the polished obsidian floor. The air tasted of ionized metal and tension. Conversations halted as the humans approached the central dais. The council rarely felt quiet. Tonight, it felt like a held breath. Cantor leaned toward Mira. "Eyes on Vrax." She didn't need the reminder. Archon Vraxthal stood on the elevated Varka platform, flanked by 20 armored soldiers. Their armor gleamed with a faint blue haze, charged, waiting. Vrax's posture radiated anticipation, not patience. The chamber's central spire ignited with light as Councillor Sherla addressed the room. "This summit convenes under urgent circumstances. We gather to address escalating crises along the Dominion border and concerns raised by several member states." A ripple of murmurs followed. Vrax lifted a hand. "And concerns about humanity's hidden capabilities." Mira felt the shift in the hall, the crowd leaning into fear. Cantor spoke first. The United Terran delegation is transparent, cooperative, and here in good faith. Rumors do not merit suspicion. Rumors? Vrax said, voice sharp. Then allow us to review facts. A hollow display flickered to life above the chamber. Charts, neural scans, fabricated reports, carefully crafted distortions Mira recognized instantly. Vrax paced slowly as he presented them. Enhanced muscular tissue. Reflex speeds 10 times baseline. Neural pattern irregularities consistent with engineered combat casts. This is what the humans conceal. Myra's fists tightened at her sides, but her voice stayed calm. Those are distortions. Baseline human physicality was documented when we joined the Council. Vrax hissed. Lies wrapped in courtesy. Shirley intervened. Archon Vraxthal, provide evidence, not conjecture. I intend to, Vrax said. He raised a hand. The lights dimmed. A tremor pulsed through the floor, small, but sharp. Myra's team exchanged glances. It wasn't an earthquake. It was controlled. She murmured, Brace. Quietly. Cantor whispered, What did he do? Before Mira answered, the upper balconies ignited with a deafening blast. A blossom of white-blue flame ripped across the observation deck. Metal screamed. Debris cascaded like burning rain. The chamber plunged into panic, shouts, shrieks, scrambling bodies. Alarms blared. Defensive shields snapped into place around the central dais. Alien guards raised weapons. Some fired blindly. Others froze. Vrax's voice cut through the chaos, amplified by the chamber's systems. This is the threat humanity brings. You see their sabotage. He stepped back as his soldiers formed a protective ring around him. Mira didn't waste a second. Move! She commanded. Her team reacted instantly. Ruiz pivoted toward falling debris, grabbing a collapsing support strut and hurling it aside to clear a path. Aisha swept through the crowd, pulling a wounded Sarnell ambassador to safety behind a shielded column. Lorne pushed Cantor down and covered him as a second explosion rattled the upper catwalks. Mira scanned the chamber, tracking motion, threats, angles. Nothing about the blasts matched human signatures. They were Varka demolition charges, timed, directional, engineered for maximum fear with minimal structural collapse. Vrax had staged the perfect false flag. The delegates panicked. Many species weren't conditioned for sudden violence. Some froze, others fled. A few fired in random directions, making the situation worse. Mira shouted over the chaos. Clear the central floor! Form a corridor! Her voice cut through panic like a blade. Her team responded without needing details. They moved as one, shoulders squared, steps exact, calm in the storm. Where alien guards hesitated or fired wildly, the humans worked with precision. A shattered platform collapsed toward a cluster of fragile crystalline Threxians. Mira vaulted forward, catching the falling edge with both hands. The weight nearly drove her to one knee, but she held, muscles coiled with trained strength. Move! She barked. The Threxians scrambled out. Mira shoved the platform aside and sprinted back to her formation. Another blast rocked the room, smaller, controlled. Ruiz pointed upward. Balcony, hostiles, moving! Vrax's operatives. Mira saw them, dark silhouettes slipping along the ruined ledge, preparing to fire on the floor below. They carried sleek rifles with Varka's signatures. Suppressive action, Mira ordered. Her guards needed no weapons to comply. Lorne grabbed a fractured support rod and threw it with pinpoint accuracy. It struck one attacker squarely, knocking them over the railing. Aisha bounded up collapsed debris, springing from one broken piece of metal to another, reaching the balcony in seconds. She engaged two assailants hand to hand, using momentum and leverage to send them crashing to the floor below. Ruiz intercepted a third operative who leapt down, subduing him with a precise arm lock and pinning him to the ground. The chamber erupted into whispers even amid the chaos. By the stars, look at them! They're unarmed, how? They move like trained hunters. No weapons, none. The fears shifted. No longer at the chaos. At the humans. Exactly what Vrax wanted. He raised his voice again. You see? They neutralized threats with ease. They were prepared for this. They are not peacekeepers. They are concealed weapons of war. Mira ignored him. She focused on stabilizing the scene. Ambassador, with me, she said. Cantor moved behind her, shaken but composed. You think he'll escalate further? He already has. The counselor platforms adjusted height, pulling back from the central arena in self-preservation mode. Automated barriers closed around them. Mira spotted movement above, another saboteur preparing to fire at the counselors. No, you don't, she muttered. She sprinted, leaping onto a tilted section of debris, using it as a ramp. She launched upward, caught the edge of the balcony, and swung herself over. The attacker aimed. Mira struck first. One disarming sweep. One precise kick. One controlled impact. The operative crumpled unconscious. Mira breathed hard, then turned back toward the chamber. The chaos was easing. Her team was regrouping. Vrax's men were neutralized. But now all eyes were on her. Counselors stared from behind their shields, fearful, awestruck, silent. Vrax stepped forward, mandibles spread in theatrical outrage. This is what they are. You witnessed it yourselves. Bare-handed warriors capable of subduing an assault that should have overwhelmed any normal guard. Ask yourselves, what species trains its diplomats protectors like this? Mira dropped back to the floor, landing in a controlled crouch. Her answer came without hesitation. Any species that refuses to depend on weapons. Her voice carried across the chamber. And any species who knows that discipline outmatches chaos. Murmurs rippled through the room. The explosions had stopped. Smoke drifted from the upper ledges. The saboteurs were down. The chamber was stabilizing. But the moment wasn't over. Vrax wasn't finished. He raised a trembling hand toward Mira, eyes blazing with triumph. You've just proven my case. Mira looked up at him. Calm, steady, unarmed. No, she said quietly. Not yet. The entire chamber waited. The storm was about to break. The Galactic Council chamber had never been this silent. Not when the Vorthan plague swept across 3 systems. Not when the Heliox rebellion tore apart half the Silver Crescent arm. Not even when the first human envoy, back in those uneasy early years, walked into the hall with the quiet confidence of a predator among grazing livestock. This silence was different. Heavy. Expectant. Every species present felt it like a hand closing over their throats. Rothan adjusted the ceremonial discs across his chest. Even they felt too loud, their small chimes echoing sharply in the chamber's hush. His sensory organs pulsed with agitation as the doors at the far end slid open. The humans entered. Not soldiers. Not diplomats. Their guards unarmed. As always. But today, something was off. Jalen Cross led the formation with a stride that carried no arrogance, only inevitability. Behind him walked 3 guards, their posture upright, eyes calm and unblinking. No armor. No visible tech. Yet the tension around them rippled outward like a force field. Raleigh leaned close to Rothlin. Something has changed, she whispered. No, Rothlin replied. Something has ended. He didn't know how he knew. But he felt it. Jalen reached the speaking dais, met the council's eyes one by one, and inclined his head. Counselors, he said. Thank you for gathering on short notice. Humanity appreciates your willingness to hear what must be said today. Humans rarely thank the council for anything. Rothlin's internal pulse accelerated. We'll begin, Jalen continued, by addressing the incident involving Representative Vokler, the ambush in the Vesh Rift, and the attempted abduction of Ambassador Lyra Hales. The chamber erupted, shouts, clicks, screeches, and bellowing protests. Silence, Jalen said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The word ripple crashed into every delegate like a low-frequency shockwave. Even the Zykuth, whose auditory range barely aligned with humanoids, recoiled from it. Rothlin felt a tremor deep within his plates. Humans weren't projecting intimidation. They were revealing capability. Jalen allowed the silence to settle before continuing. For decades, humanity attended diplomatic meetings unarmed. Many of you found this strange. Some assumed we were arrogant. Others believed we were naive, trusting, or unaware of danger. His gaze sharpened. You were wrong. One of the Solari delegates stood abruptly. Then why? It demanded. Why come to the council hall without weapons? Why expose yourselves to danger? Jalen nodded to his guards. Without a word, they stepped forward and spread across the dais. Let us clarify something, Jalen said. Humans do not carry weapons to council meetings because... The lights flickered. The chamber's security field surged to life. And a coordinated wave of cloaked infiltrators decloaked across the balconies, 30 assassins, armored, armed, and already aiming. The council screamed. Rothlin froze. This wasn't a diplomatic crisis. This was an execution. The assassins opened fire. But the shots never landed. Jalen's guards moved. Not with panic. Not with fear. Not even quickly, just precisely. One stepped into the path of a plasma bolt. His sleeve shimmered as a hidden layer of reactive shielding absorbed the blast. Another pivoted with controlled force, striking the balcony railing with an open palm and projecting an invisible shock pulse upward. A third simply lifted a hand, his eyes glazing with neural activation, as every assassin's weapon locked, jammed, or powered down simultaneously. Rothlin's breath stopped. The humans were weapons. The council guards scrambled, but the assassins were already neutralized, disarmed, incapacitated, pinned to the floor with terrifying efficiency. The entire assault ended in 7 seconds. Jalen didn't move during any of it. When the final attacker hit the ground, he finally spoke. That, he said softly, is why we do not carry weapons. His gaze swept the chamber, calm, resolute, unmistakably dominant. Humanity does not come unarmed. We come unburdened. Rothlin felt the words crack through the room. Jalen continued, voice level, steady. For centuries, we built tools to defend ourselves. Then we learned to become the tools ourselves, efficiency, precision, restraint. To us, diplomacy is not the absence of strength. It is the disciplined application of it. Airali whispered. They're more dangerous without weapons than most are with fleets. Indeed, Rothlin murmured. Jalen motioned to the neutralized assassins. These attackers were hired by factions who believed humanity's presence destabilizes the balance of power. Today proves what we have said for generations: the balance was already fragile. We merely refused to exploit it. He stepped away from the dais. This ends now. A soft tremor rolled through the chamber, not fear this time, but recognition. Humanity will not impose dominance, Jalen said. But we will not tolerate coercion, abductions, or threats to our envoys. Where we walk unarmed, it is an act of trust. When that trust is broken, he gestured toward his guards, who stood like living monoliths. You discover what we kept sheathed. The council sat motionless. At last, Rothlin rose. On the cross, he said, voice unsteady before strengthening. The council acknowledges humanity's grievance and accepts responsibility for its failure to safeguard your delegation. What is your request? Jalen met his eyes with the calm of a man who had already chosen every word. Not dominance. Not tribute. Not control. He paused. Only reciprocity. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Stand with us, Jalen said. Not beneath us. Not above us. With us. Treat our trust as we treat yours. We come without weapons so that all may see we choose peace. Rothlin inhaled slowly. In that moment, he understood. Humans were not fearless. They were something far more elemental. Creatures who had mastered fear and forged it into discipline. He bowed. Deeply. The chamber followed. Jalen nodded once. Nothing proud. Nothing dramatic. Just acknowledgement. As humanity's guards escorted him out, Rothlin whispered to Eirali. We thought humans were vulnerable because they carried no weapons. Eirali shook her head. No, she said. They were warning us. And now, we finally understand the warning.